To start the show tonight, I know this is what we want to do as Georgia fans. Mike D jumping in here. Go Dogs. I appreciate you tuning in live, Mike. Um, but let's where I want to start the show, and I know this is the last thing that Georgia fans want to talk about right now. But let's talk about this Sugar Bowl again. I came to you with the instant reaction, the post game. We don't need to rehash everything, but I've had some time to decompress since then. A little further a little further introspective. I don't know. Words are hard, but you know what I'm trying to say. A little bit further analysis of this game upon further review of the Sugar Bowl. And I want to start with Kirby Smart because I think I came to you, it may have been a little hot takey to some, where I really kind of blamed this loss on Kirby Smart. And, that may have sounded harsh to some, but it's like when you're talking about your children, it's just, I expect more, so it comes from a place of love. So it may have been harsh, but it's honestly the first time that I can remember a game, like I said on the instant reaction, first time I can remember a game coming away thinking Kirby Smart is the reason that Georgia lost that game. It was the first time I can ever remember that. I felt like Gunnar Stockton, didn't play great, played well enough to win. The defense didn't play great, played well enough to win. And that's not to say Kirby should be fired or is on the hot seat or any sort of nonsense like that, or he should be under a bunch of pressure coming in the next year. It was just a bad decision I think he made to be aggressive before the half and, under the current situation. And you could tell, I think he regretted it by halftime. He said so in his halftime interview. So, but I mean, with everything going on in this man's personal life, his dad having the issues with the surgery that he had in New Orleans, has since passed away. I mean, I think it's pretty understandable if there's going to be a time for this guy to maybe not be as sharp as he could have been on the sideline. So rest in peace, Sonny Smart, Kirby Smart's dad. Just a tragic situation as far as all that goes. Kirby Smart is still the best coach in college football. I wouldn't trade Kirby for anyone out there. And honestly, that's like the national titles haven't even changed my mind. Like it was definitely a hotter take back in 2020 or before the 2021 title game to think like I wouldn't trade Kirby Smart for anybody. But that's how I felt, exactly this day, January 1st, January 1st. It's January 7th right now. January 7th, 2021, prior to Georgia winning the national championship. Like 4 years ago, I would have told you the same thing. I'm not trading Kirby Smart for anyone. It's clear, anyone who pays attention, like how much this guy has elevated the program since being hired. And I mean, not to mention he's a UGA alum and just loves Athens, loves the University of Georgia more than just about anybody. But like I said, Gunnar played as well as you can expect QB2 to play. The defense, I was looking at the drive. The drives really just made it that much more frustrating because this Georgia defense came to play in the Sugar Bowl. 9 offensive drives Notre Dame had in that game. Oh, outside of the one play 12-yard drive. So there's scoring drives in that game. 49 yards and a field goal, 32 yards and a field goal, 13 yards and a touchdown, 29 yards and a field goal. Notre Dame dominated the field position game in this game. And, you got to think, Brett Thorson being out, the, All-American punter. I don't know if he was officially an All-American, but he's one of the best punters I've seen play at Georgia. You had a stud in the punting game, and Georgia did tend to dominate field position in a lot of their games, especially a lot of their big wins on the season. But outside of that, one play 12-yard or one play 13 yards, the touchdown they just kind of stole right before the half. Notre Dame's offense had 9 offensive drives, 3 field goals, 5 punts, and a turnover on downs, averaged 3.4 yards per play. So it's frustrating because I think one of my first takes on the show, I might not even it was still everything was fresh. But I don't know if I voiced this exactly how I meant to say it, but what I meant to say on the first show was that 2 things could be true. Gunnar Stockton could play as well as you could expect him to play. Carson Beck, playing in that game changes the outcome of that game. I don't think it's a hot take to say. Like Georgia had so many games, 8 of the 10 games that Georgia had against Power 4 competition this year. They scored less than or 7 points or less in regulation. So it was frustrating, but with Carson back at quarterback, it's like that was business as usual. That team, they also averaged about 20 points a game in the second half of the back. They were not able to get it done in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. So that's all we need to say as far as the 2020 as far as the Sugar Bowl game goes and the college football playoff. It was frustrating. Georgia did not get it done against Notre Dame, and you got to think a big part of that is the quarterback situation. It's a little frustrating, but um, I did have this one thought because I a couple years ago after Georgia beat Alabama in the national championship, I had this buddy of mine who was just like, oh yeah, I was just heartbroken over that national championship game, and I was like, buddy, you don't know what heartbreak is. Like, you're an Alabama fan. Like, I don't even want to hear what sort of heartbreak you think you've experienced. Like, all the national titles, it can't compare. And now that Georgia's experienced their two national titles, I can say without a shadow of the doubt that Bama fans don't know what heartbreak is anymore, because these losses, maybe it's just me, these losses don't sting the same as they once did. Like, I think it's like you go ask a Chicago Cubs fan in 2016. Like, they won the World Series in 2016, lost in the NLCS the next year. Like, you really think Cubs fans were heartbroken after losing in the NLCS the following year? Like, it'd been 108 years since they won a a World Series. Like, I think I don't know how many years that buys you, but 108, like, how many generations is that of Cubs fans that just did not, ever see their team win a championship? Like, so I think, especially winning back to back, like, I don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard through and through. Like, I remember, 2002 Florida, like the DJ Shockley throwing the interception, Terrence Edwards with the big drop late. Like, I remember, the 2004 Auburn game, 2005 Auburn for that matter. Some of these games that ended Georgia's season, a second loss, all of the Alabama games, 2012, the 2017 national title game, the 2018 SEC championship, like, all of those games were so heartbreaking. 2020 Florida, even. Every time one of those games happened and Georgia's season is officially over, it just added to that drought. Now it's 25 years since 1980. Now it's 30 years. Now it's 35. We got to 40. And kudos to Georgia rocking the 1980 throwbacks in 2020. Like, just literally celebrating that had been 40 years since we won a national title. I feel like it was a way to, I don't know, to embrace the trolling, kind of like the Yankee Doodle thing with the Revolutionary War. You're like, no, we're just gonna own it. You think you're making fun of us? We're just gonna own it. And those throwbacks were also great uniforms. So can't say enough about that. But yeah, it's after these two national titles, 2023 was disappointing. The one time you lose knocks you out of the 14 playoff. That probably doesn't happen most years. A one-loss team that started 12-0 lose the SEC championship is probably in most years. And then this year had the toughest schedule in college football, and didn't found a way to couldn't get it done at the end of the season. So I think one thing that makes it a little easier, I think, is the backup quarterback thing. Like, you're playing shorthanded is just like a little more understandable. And I think ultimately, like, it's gonna sound homerish to say, but I mean, they're the preseason number one team in the country, so they don't win the championship, it's a disappointment, right? But I honestly do feel like this team overachieved. Like, I mean, you just look at it, like, they didn't run the ball well, they didn't catch the ball well, and the offensive line wasn't good. You played the toughest schedule in all of college football. It wasn't even a year where you had an elite defense. You had a very good defense, but not the elite of elite Georgia defense. And that team won the SEC. Like, that doesn't sound like a team that wins the SEC. And they got it done. So they did win the SEC championship, but ultimately without Carson Beck, they fall short to Notre Dame. So it's definitely disappointing, but is what it is.